It's time for the Movin the Chains podcast. Your home for high school football coverage in the Palmetto State. Every team, every game, every week. And now your hosts, Kevin Thomas and Jerel Hendricks.
Welcome in to Movin the Chains, brought to you by Founders Federal Credit Union. I'm Kevin Thomas alongside Jerel Hendricks here for our Week 4 recap show brought to you by Folly Row. Jerel, we were so pumped up, so excited all week long for just a monster slate of games. You know, some of them turned out not to be quite as good as we were hoping they would be. We had a few blowouts here and there, but, man, still a great week in South Carolina high school football.
Yeah, man, it was a mixed bag. I think we saw some stuff that we expected. Like you said, saw some blowouts, saw some tight ball games, but I think it lived up to the hype for the most part. The game we went to, not as much because of some, extenuating circumstances, but it was still great event nonetheless.
And we appreciate you guys for tuning in to us. We're here on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, social media, all at Movin Chains, MOVINCHAINS, our website, movinchains.com, our podcast on Apple, Spotify, Google, and more. Jerel and I do a weekly recap show, comes out on Sundays. We do a live preview show on Facebook and YouTube at 7 o'clock on Tuesday nights. Tune in for that. Great to have some interaction from you guys. We do our spaces on Twitter. Friday night's the scoreboard show pretty much. We've got guys nationwide hopping in and joining us and giving us scores. It's a lot of fun. We do players of the week, team of the week, yada, 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 et cetera, et cetera. But, Jerel, before we get into the game that we were at, let's give a quick shout-out to our friends of the program.
Take your financial game to the next level with Founders Federal Credit Union. Reach your full potential. Relax. Join Founders today. Visit an office near you or relaxjoinfounders.com to apply. Federally insured by NCUA, member qualification required.
Come for the deals and stay for the quality with Folly Row. From polos to Q-zips to hats and more, their moisture wicking, quick drying, and anti-wrinkle apparel is the perfect blend of comfort and fashion for game day. FollyRow.com and at Folly Row on social media. Folly Row. Very good polos.
Jerel and I hit the road on Friday, heading down to Darlington County to check out Irmo at Hartsville over at Kellytown Stadium, a historic venue, two historic programs, really, Jerel, again, that we were really looking forward to. I'd been, but it's been several years. I know it was your first time there, so we want to definitely get down there and check out that ball game between two 4A powers. You know, we found out some bad news right before the game that quarterback McKendry Douglas was out for Hartsville. That was a huge loss for them. You know, with their offense, what they do, you need a guy who has been in the system for a little bit, understands the reads, understands, the pulls and the cuts and all that stuff. And you could tell they missed him for sure on Friday night. But to get going here, Irmo jumped out to an early 7-0 lead, their first possession of the ball game. They kept it off with a 3-yard touchdown by Jaden Allen Hendricks. They go up 7-0 with 9:13 left in the first quarter. No scoring for the rest of the first quarter. Both defenses kind of settled in a little bit there. Irmo scores again early in the second. 9:59 left. Another 3-yard run by Jaden Allen Hendricks to go up 14-0. Hartsville, though, answered right back. Demarion Coe, about a 90-yard touchdown on a kickoff return on the ensuing kickoff there. Just too much speed, man. Hit the sideline there and was gone. They cut the lead to 14-7, 9:46 left in the second quarter. They do stop Irmo the next possession. They get the ball back, just past, I think, around the 40-yard line, so around midfield. They end up going forward on 4th and 9. Cannot convert. Irmo holds. They get the ball to plus 45, and they drive down, cap off the drive with a 2-yard touchdown by Jaden Allen Hendricks. His start of the night to go up 21-7. 3:30 left in the second quarter. And that was really kind of all she wrote, Jerel. They actually added one more touchdown before the half, a 30-yard touchdown pass from A.J. Brand to Donovan Murth to go up 28-7. Now, the Hartsville defender, I thought, had a good read on it, completely misplayed it in the air, falls into Murph's hands for a touchdown, and the Yellow Jackets led 28-7 at the break. And it was just Jaden Allen Hendricks and that offensive line was just too much, man. They were just leaning on Hartsville. Red Foxes couldn't tackle him. He was getting 4, 5, 6 yards a clip, it seemed like. And then on the offensive side, the third-string quarterback filling in for McKendry Douglas couldn't really get it going. The run game had a few sparks with McDaniel and Waters, but couldn't really break a long one ever. And it has been all Irmo up to that point.
Yeah, I mean, this game is essentially size versus speed. Hartsville's got all the speed there, and, Irmo just leaned on them with their size. Like you said, that left side of the offensive line for Irmo just dominated the football game. And Jaden Hendricks is a load of a running back. He's quick on his feet, but he's a one-cut guy, and he's getting upfield. He's getting that pad level down, and he's getting what he can get. But very impressive for what the Yellow Jackets were able to do. They're just very physical, but the defense as well, man. I was really impressed. They run that odd front, kind of a 3-4. And they did a fantastic job. You mentioned like Hartsville, they like to get out on the edge. They like to utilize their speed. But those outside backers, those ends, they were doing a fantastic job of, sealing, making sure everything was going upfield and making tackles, man. They tackled extremely well. But I want to go to that sequence in the second quarter. That middle of the second quarter, Hartsville goes forward on fourth down, doesn't convert. But when Irmo gets the ball, they actually had a fourth down conversion on a fake punt. A.J. Brand, the quarterback, is the punter. He pulled it, kind of like that delayed kick type deal. He'd been doing that a couple times in the game. Finally, he lulled Hartsville to sleep, pulled it. He ran for about 15, 20 yards, picked up the first down. That's how they were able to convert. That was the play of the game for me. And that drive ended up, with them going up 21-7 there. That was pretty much all she wrote, Kev.
That was a huge play. Start the second half, the Red Foxes got the ball. And they didn't quit, Jerel. They drove right down a 1-yard touchdown by Carmelo McDaniel out of the Wild Fox. They cut it 28-14, 9-11 left. But then Irmo, man, answered right back. 7-yard touchdown from Jaden Hendricks, 35-14, 4:53 left in the third quarter. That score held for the rest of the quarter. Hartsville, they kept fighting, man. We saw their quarterback make a few throws there later on in the ball game that were nice. So if he has to play down the road, he'll have some good experience. But you could tell they were missing something there for sure. But they do get another 1-yard touchdown by Jackson Moore out of the Wild Fox, make it 35-21, 7:44 left. They kick the onside kick, and actually they recover. So they get the ball to plus 41 there, but they can't get anything going. Irmo holds on fourth down. They take over 6:14 left, and that was all of the scoring on the night there. Irmo wins the ball game 35-21 over Hartsville on the road. Two heavyweight 4A powers, two teams that, obviously top 10 in the classification. Irmo, probably a little bit better than I thought they were after seeing them in person. Sure. Hartsville, I still feel like it's a very good team. Obviously, when you're down your quarterback, that changes a lot. So that hurt them, but they put up a good fight, man. I think both teams are going to make deep runs in the playoffs. Interesting to see, what happens when region play rolls wrong, especially for Hartsville because they play in such a tough region there. But overall, Jerel, I know it was your first time to Kellytown. What was your overall thoughts of the experience?
Man, I've been blown away with these environments we've been able to go to this year, man. And this, just didn't disappoint. I'd never even been to Hartsville before, been to a couple of races down there in Darlington, but never been to Hartsville. Man, that community was on fire, for the team. Another packed crowd. It was homecoming, our first one of the year. So we've made it this far. Haven't had homecoming yet until this one, but it was really cool. Actually, it was so packed, we actually went to the visitor side. We still had Hartsville fans over there that we got to interact with. But I was blown away, man. Great facilities, very hospitable. Got to talk to the AD, Coach Calabrese. But my takeaway from this game really is Hartsville's got to get healthy. They need McKendry, in order to do what they want to do. Like you said, they're playing with their third-string quarterback because the backup got hurt in a jamboree. I think the quarterback settled down as the game went on. Like you said, hit some throws.
Jerel, I was really taken aback by just the size of Irmo and the physicality. They had a huge offensive line. I didn't realize how big they were. Then, of course, Jaden Hendricks is a load to bring down, breaking tackles each play. It felt like they're going to be very tough for anybody to go up against because the size they have up front. They can really wear you down, especially when this cold weather starts rolling in here. They're not going to be fun to play against at all. But we're actually caught up with Coach Aaron Brand after the ball game, got a few words with him. We'll put that interview here in a second. We also caught up with Jaden Hendricks after the game as well. That interview is on our Twitter page, our YouTube, our Instagram as well, and Facebook, things like that. But here is Coach Aaron Brand after Irmo's 35-21 victory over Hartsville.
Jerel Hendricks with Movin the Chains. We're here in Kellytown, Hartsville. Got head coach Aaron Brand here. His Yellow Jackets just knocked off the Red Foxes 35-21. Coach, you had 2 weeks to prepare, and it showed today. You guys were physical. What did you see on both sides of the ball to know that you were going to, dominate this football game?
Well, we got a big old running back. It's just that. It's really that simple, and we got a big old offensive line, and we were able to assert our will early with the running back getting downhill, and he kept asking for the ball, and normally we like to throw it a little bit more, but the running back kept asking for the ball, and who am I who am I in this little world right here to not listen to a 6'3", 230-pound guy? So I'm really excited about that.
Yeah, that running back is Jaden Allen Hendricks. He had 4 touchdowns tonight. You like to run up that left side behind big Christopher Williams. You know, how special was that, knowing that you could impose your will and just dominate?
Well, you know, we don't want to make too much of a habit, but we saw that they were not as competitive on that left side on film. So we felt we had a game plan and we wanted to stick with it, even when they overloaded just a hair. And that's when you saw AJ pull it just a couple times. But Elijah and Brian Ham and those guys, they were calling it for it on the left side. And like, who am I in this small world again to not listen to my players? So I'm super excited about the effort they had tonight. We're so happy to get out of here. The thing looked like it could change. We watched last week.
Yes,
we
sir.
saw how the comeback was against Dillon. And we knew that these guys were going to keep going. They weren't going to quit. And Coach Calabrese is just a heck of a coach, man. They got a heck of a system, and it's so hard to stop. But our guys were disciplined all night, especially on defense. We got to still correct these penalties on offense, but our defense came through again tonight. So.
I don't want to end on a somber note, but I got to ask you, there was a lot of penalties tonight. You had a couple special teams lapses. What do you do to clean that up in practice this week, you know, before you have that last game in non-region play against Airport next week?
Well, we got to simply just get back to the drawing board. We got to figure out where we're going wrong, and I think it's our feet. I think we're doing pretty good at the point of attack, but I think we're not running our feet toward the end, and that's costing us a little bit because we start lunging and we start getting out here a little bit more, and then you're more likely to hold when you're out there. So we want to stay in a little tighter, get to those backers. I think when those backers start slipping through a little bit, we had a tendency to kind of grab them, but once again, we got to keep repping through the week, and we got to do a little bit more live during the week so we can simulate game time situation a little bit more. But you know, we've been a little bit banged up. So you know, when you don't have the great numbers like we don't, it's a little less likely that you can bang every day at practice. But we got to get back to the technique, be technique sound if we're going to be championship bound. So
Love that. Coach Brand and his Yellow Jackets, they moved to 4-0 on the season. Again, they play Airport next week, 35-21 tonight here in Hartsville. Congratulations, Coach.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
That was Coach Aaron Brand, his Irmo Yellow Jackets 35-21 winners over Hartsville on Friday night over at Kellytown. Jerel, I know we didn't mention this earlier too much, but had a great meal before the game, Westwood Barbecue, had a great hot dog at the game there at Kellytown. We'll have some food reviews coming out for those next week, man. Just a great road trip overall and a great ball game. Hats off to Irmo on the victory. But let's take a look now at our games of the week, Jerel.
Games of the week, as always, presented by our friends at Kona. Man, so we had that one. Wrap it up. We had Irmo and Hartsville was 35-21. Big one up here in the upstate. We talked about it on Tuesday. Got a lot of Gaffney followers that were not happy with us making the prediction that ended up coming true. And that's Northwestern strolling in, to the reservation. They win that game 49-24. Kevin, the game wasn't that close. Started off with a bang. Gaffney gets some garbage time touchdowns late in the game there, but Northwestern, I think that is the signature win. I think we had one last week with Crestwood, but I think Northwestern just dismantling Gaffney this week is the signature win in the state so far this season.
Like you said, that game wasn't that close. It was 42-3 in the third quarter at one point, man. Northwestern all over those guys. Kickoff return, touchdown, Turbo Richard. A couple more touchdowns, Turbo Richard. I mean, you're going to hear about him more later in the program, but those guys are just so well coached by Coach Walford, so disciplined. Finley Polk at quarterback does a great job there. We always know about Richard coming back. He played great there for them, 4 touchdowns on the night. The receiving crew with Burris and Vance and Nichols and Hopkins are great. The defense is solid. I mean, to hold a pretty good Gaffney team towards 24 points with a lot of those being in garbage time as well. Super impressive, especially on the road at the reservation. That is a huge, huge win. I know they felt like they owed Gaffney a couple after losing last year and then losing 2 years ago in the playoffs as well. I know this game meant a lot to Northwestern. Gaffney, I think, still will be fine. I think they're going to be a good football team. They're going to be tough out in 5A, of course, but we said it on the I think maybe on the previous show and on our spaces on Friday night, Jerel, Northwestern might be the best team in the state, not just in 4A. They are very, very good. Hats off to those guys. Huge win. Cannot say it enough. Huge win. I mean, it's so hard to go into that place and win and just to dismantle the Indians like they did. Big time for Northwestern.
And that's it. These non-regions, you look at 4 and 5 and these different classifications, Northwestern, that's a weird take there, because 2 years ago, these two teams played for the Upper State Championship in 5A. That was a 10-13, 10-17 game that was in overtime. So that's not one of those things you can look at when you factor in Northwestern. Again, one of the best teams in the state, regardless of classification. Gaffney, they're going to be just fine. I saw it on Facebook where it's been pointed out. Gaffney's had a big loss like this in state championship runs the last few years that they've done that. So it's nothing, just correct the game tape, get better from it, and move on. But that is a statement win for the Trojans there. Another statement win, and this was a close matchup. You had South Florence and South Point. Last year, this game got out of hand quickly. Didn't really live up to the hype, but this year's edition certainly did. The Bruins win 22-19. South Florence just continues to play great defense. They lean on that defense. South Point also plays great defense, but the Bruins are able to get away with a tight one. And this is, a potential, state championship matchup here.
The Bruins fell behind early. South Point, I think, was 13-0, something like that early on. But then the defense for South Florence really settled in. They kind of held those guys, I think, to 4 or 5 possessions in a row with no points, allowed that offense to kind of get figured out. Jaden Sellers doing a little bit of everything for them this year, running the ball and catching the ball out of the backfield there. He's doing a great job filling in kind of that playmaker spot there for the Bruins. And that defense, man, you mentioned it, a pick 6 late to kind of seal it. They now have 5 straight games with a defensive touchdown. That's 6 for the season. Plus, I think they also have a punt return touchdown on the year as well. So they're getting it done in all phases there. Coach Marlowe's squad is playing great ball. And Coach Collins' team, now has 2 losses already, but they play as tough a slate as anybody in the state. They beat Spartanburg. They lost to Gaffney. They've now lost to South Florence. I mean, they beat, I think, Chester 2 weeks ago. They beat Rock Hill as well, I think it was. They play a super tough non-region slate. They're going to be just fine. But this South Florence team, man, they've got a couple things to work on. The passing offense isn't really where Coach Marlowe wants it to be right now. But that defense is playing lights out. Love those guys on that side of the ball especially.
Life after Lenoris is going just fine. I think that's their 15th straight win. So kudos to them. It might be more than that. Might be like 20, because how many did they win last year?
Yeah, they won 15 in a row last year.
Yeah, so that's 20 straight.
Yeah.
So South Florence is getting the job done. That's cool to see there. They match up with the Hartsville in 2 weeks, and then South Point, it's looming. They're going to be playing Northwestern. So these are teams that we'll be talking about as the season progresses and well into the playoffs. The next matchup we had was Summerville and Sumter. This game wasn't close at all. I mean, Summerville just smoked Sumter 47-10. Again, a game that wasn't as close even as the scoreline predicts. This is a rematch from the 3rd round of the playoffs last year. It was a tight battle, but the Green Wave, man, they are something special. Sumter, the Gamecocks have got to go back to the drawing board and figure some things out.
Last year, the book on Summerville was great defense, couldn't really score. It feels like this year they still got the good defense, and they've got a way to score now, and that's Yannick Smith. I mean, a huge ball game for him. Like, he had 3 touchdowns this week. The quarterback, Jaden Cummings, is playing well also for the Green Wave there. They're getting the ball in the end zone when that defense is playing lights out. And Sumter, like you mentioned, we saw them firsthand. Like, they've got a good defense as well. They had some issues in the back end, we felt like, and obviously we saw that against Crestwood last week, and then I'm sure the same thing at Summerville as well. But offensively, they can lean on you. They're big and physical. They don't have a lot of explosiveness. If they fall behind, they can't really catch up too well. I think Summerville is a clear-cut, top 2, top 3, maybe the best team in 5A. Sumter is still very good, probably top 10, but they're not quite on the level, I think, of Summerville right now.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and say it. I think with the resume so far, Summerville has cemented themselves as the best team in the state, and I'm comfortable in saying that. This win loses a little bit of luster with Sumter dropping that game last week to Crestwood, but Sumter's still good regardless, and that's a team with Coach Barnes. They're going to, they have a ton of talent there. They're going to regroup. They're going to figure it out. So this is a team that's not going to go away. But I think Summerville just flexing their muscles early. That's a very good team. And, Yannick Smith is something special to see. But moving on, man, we had a tight one in Wilder Stadium down in Clinton. Chapman rolls in there and wins 22-21.
Chapman drives down to the goal line, gets stuffed on 4th and 1. Clinton drives 99 yards, scores on a touchdown pass with no time left on the clock from 5 yards out to tie it up. They line up to kick the extra point. Chapman calls timeout. Clinton decides to come back out and go for 2. Get stuff, cannot convert. Just a heck of a ball game. These teams played a classic 2 years ago, Jerel, that we saw down there at Wilder Stadium. Clinton got the best of them both times last year in the regular season and playoffs, beat them pretty handily. But another big-time ball game down in Clinton on Friday. I think both these teams are really good in 3A. Interesting to see how much better Clinton will get as some of these replacement pieces get better and better and get more comfortable in their new roles with some injuries they've had. Zay Johnson, I think you got to find a way to get him the ball a bit more. He's just such an explosive playmaker. You're going to need to figure out a way to get him involved. A Shrine Bowl guy, since Cincinnati commit. You can't just have him out wide. He may have to play in the backfield, but I don't know. But you got to get him touches more, I feel like, there. On the Chapman side, this is two huge wins. They beat Burns a few weeks back. Now they've beaten Clinton. Yeah. The quarterback, the Gray kid, is a really good dual threat kid, really, physical, really just a tough guy. And then Rashawn Cunningham out wide is a stud as well. This Chapman team is really solid in 3A, but I think Clinton's a good squad as well. But whale of a ball game. Hats off to Coach Cap and the boys.
Most definitely. And I like Clinton. They were going to kick it, to tie it up, go to overtime. Coach Fountain listens to his team. They're like, hey, we want to go for 2. And, like this game, like we said, doesn't really count because it's a non-region game. But I like that, man. You're listening to your players. You're just going to go for it because they want to. Didn't work out, but that just shows a confidence, and that's going to go a long way as the season goes on. All right, Kev, let's go to our next game of the week presented by Kona. We've got Greenville High and Jerel, man. Before I actually get into the game here, let's talk about these two communities. They had Spirit Week. Combined, they raised over $725,000 for charity. Just so fantastic that these two communities were able to come together, raise money for their respective charities, had some big donations. I think even Mark Wahlberg donated to the Patriots' efforts there. So that's really cool to see. This was a barn burner of a football game. You had Greenville hanging on to win 21-19 over Jerel, man. Jerel, man, had some issues with some extra points that kind of bit them at the end, but they were able to overcome a 14-0 deficit at the half. Good to see them kind of come back in this particular game because last year was lopsided. Jerel, man, got off to a hot start last year, and this was kind of the buzzsaw they ran into with Greenville. This game was much more competitive. Maybe they're not ready to take that next progressive step and be like a legitimate state championship contender in 5A, but it was a good showing for the Patriots nonetheless, and a good showing for Greenville High as well.
Jerel, man, had the ball, drove down, scored, couldn't convert the 2 to tie it up there late. Actually got the ball back again, and Romani Burton had to get a pick for Greenville in the end zone to seal it. So even though Jerel, man, lost, I think this is a team that is still getting better under Coach Watson. Maybe not quite ready yet to make a deep playoff run, but they are improved. They keep improving, and they got a lot of offensive firepower. They can play with anybody. I feel like they can certainly sneak up on any team. But big win for Greenville. They needed that bounce back this week.
Most definitely. Let's move on, Kev, to our SCSA game of the week. We had Hilton Head Christian and Northwood. Hilton Head Christian, is a team that's kind of just done that Undertaker role. They've just come back out of nowhere. They win this game 31-14. This is an impressive victory for that squad.
We had them written off. And then 2 weeks ago, they beat Ben Lippen. This week, they beat Northwood, who's undefeated. The guys are for real. They're going to be a problem in SCSA this year. Northwood, interesting to see how they bounce back. They haven't played probably the best competition the first 2 weeks, but they were still 3-0. That's still super impressive after a team that hadn't won a game in 3 years. I mean, that's a great start for them under Coach Waters. Tough loss this week. Interesting to see how they rebound this week for sure.
Again, our games of the week presented by Kona. We had Irmo knocking off Hartsville 35-21. Northwestern over Gaffney 49-24. South Florence outlasts South Point 22-19. Somerville all over Sumter 47-10. Chapman defeats Clinton 22-21. Greenville over Jerel, man 21-19. And in our SCSA game of the week, Hilton Head Christian over North 31-14. Kev, let's jump into our pick'em games because we had so many games of the week. We only got 4 of those left. As always, our pick'em games are presented by Hannah Engineering. So our first pick'em game for Hannah Engineering, provided by Hannah Engineering, is Ford Dorchester and Berkeley. Kev, this one was an absolute blowout. Ford D wins this game 52-0. The cool thing about this on the Ford Dorchester side, they dedicated the field to Steve LaPrade, the former coach there, legendary coach there. So it's cool to see him do that. Unfortunately, the Stags were just not able to keep pace in this game, and this is quite the statement for 4D in their season. They've kind of been forgotten a little bit, especially with the hot start that Somerville's gotten off to, but this is a big, big win for 4D. All right, Kev, the next game we had was Hillcrest and Powdersville. This one got out of hand quickly as well, 31-0 at halftime. Hillcrest wins this game 52-14. Had some great, individual performances here from the Rams. Powdersville, they scored a couple touchdowns late in the third quarter, but it's just not the same team that we saw last year.
Great to see the Hillcrest offense get going. A tough performance last week against Bowling Springs, only putting up 21. And Coach Swigert told us, hey, we couldn't really get rolling there offensively, but they did certainly on Friday night. Big games from Sutton, McFadden, Stanley, and all those guys. Powdersville, I don't know what to make of them throughout that. I still think they're an okay team in 3A. I think they've got the talent there. And my guess, obviously, I have not seen the ball game, didn't see any clips from it. I think the Hillcrest D-line probably caused a lot of problems up front, and that front seven especially. I saw Hudgens didn't throw it but a few times and didn't complete a whole lot of them for Powdersville. But they got some things to figure out. But I think they will be fine there at the end. But Hillcrest, good to see them bounce back with a nice win.
Most definitely. Next game, we had defensive battle here, man. We had Buford and May River. Buford wins this game 16-13. I think it was 2-0 at the half, so I guess Buford hit a double at some point off the wall, scored a couple runs there. But, they just continued to play good football. The scoring didn't really pick up until the fourth quarter, and I think that we had Isaac Smalls from Buford, game-sealing interception late in that football game. But the Eagles have really picked it up the last few weeks.
Two teams that, are really hard-nosed, defensive-minded, battle-tested squads under Coach Bonneville and Coach Libran. Really fun game down there. It sounds like, hard fought for all four quarters, and that Buford team keeps getting better and better. They come out on the winning side, but maybe River's a team, too, I think that is going to be okay down the stretch.
Cannot let Buford continue to gain confidence, man. That is a really good football team. Very well coached. Good to see them, do well in this football game. And the final pick'em game that we had from Hand Engineering was Latta and Johnsonville. Man, did not see this scoreline coming. Latta wins this game 54-23, 28-0 after the first quarter. Kev, I saw a video. I think they recovered 2 onside kicks in that first quarter to get possession. Man, the Vikings, they might be for real this year.
They are playing really good football. We on the show, I think we all picked Johnsonville because Latta, the schedule up to this point had not been great. Hadn't played a lot of big-time teams there. And then Johnsonville, we knew how good they were last year. We knew they had the quarterback back, Malik Shippey. I knew they were replacing some pieces at running back with DeQuan Burrows graduating and whatnot, but still thought they had some pieces there. And I'm sure they probably do, just hadn't got it figured out yet. But that's a huge win for Latta. I mean, that ground attack has been great all year long, it seems like. The coaching staff there has got those guys believing. They're playing great football. The Vikings are rolling. That region is going to be even more fun now that they are competitive. Obviously, with Lakeview and Lamar and Hannah-Pamplico, always fun there. That 1A kind of PD region area is going to be really fun.
Outstanding win for the Vikings there. So awesome to see them get that. I think that was their homecoming as well. I know that community is very excited. They kind of got to play the little brother role, with Lakeview being around there, with Dillon being around there. So it's good to see the Vikings get some shine, knocking off Johnsonville in a big way. Again, those pick'em contest games, we had Fort D over Berkeley 52-0. Hillcrest over Powdersville 52-14. Buford defeats May River 16-13. And the Latta Vikings knock off the Johnsonville Golden Flashes 54-23. All right, Kev, let's look at the statewide scores. We're actually going to start with the game that was played yesterday, and that involves Gray Collegiate and St. John's out of Washington, D.C. Gray travels up to D.C. and falls 42-28. This is the first of their games that they've been trying to schedule, pending, all the mess that's going on with their region and all that. But Gray loses their first game there. Next, we got Southside Christian defeating Anderson 52-21. Union County picks up a win over Lawrence 20-17. Got Calhoun Academy over Dillon Christian 7-6. Marlboro County over Ridgeland Hardyville 38-24. Silver Bluff blanks ODub 49-0. York picks up a big win over Rock Hill 51-48. I got Red Springs in North Carolina over Mullins 20-8. Williamsburg over PD 34-28.
Rematch of two of the 2A state title winner and 3A state title winner last year. Great ball game, comes down to the end, and Williamsburg pulls it off. But two good SCSA teams. Really fun matchup down there in Kingstree on Friday night.
Surprising score here, Kev. East Clarendon over Hannah-Pamplico 21-14. Did not see that one happening.
I thought the Raiders had it rolling, a couple nice early wins, and they've lost 2 in a row now. I think to Sherall and now East Clarendon. That did catch me off guard. They got to get that offense figured out.
Good ball game here. We had Holly Hill over Richard Wynn, 36-22. Abbeville over Crescent, 21-6. Kev, man, Abbeville the last 2 weeks kind of, haven't looked like Abbeville. What are your thoughts on them so far this season? It's been kind of up and down for that squad.
They certainly have not played typical Abbeville football, it feels like. They've only lost one game to Westside, no shame there, but they've been in battles or had to come back, and the other ones, it's kind of surprising. And maybe that's just a part of them having some younger guys on the team. That was a senior-laden team last year. A lot of those guys graduated and moved on, got some new faces out there, maybe just haven't, gotten used to winning and things like that quite yet. I think they're going to be quite fine, but they have not played their best football for sure.
Batesburg-Leesville wins a tight one over Newberry, 28-26. St. Joe's blows out Ware Shoals, 61-12. We've got Clover over Dorman, 35-13. Eastside knocks off Travelers Rest, 21-15. Wade Hampton beats Blue Ridge, 33-32. Walhalla over Palmetto in overtime, 20-14. Woodruff over Chesney, 40-15. Strom Thurmond defeats Evans, Georgia, 33-7. Blackville Hilda over Denmark Olar, 34-13. Timberland knocks off Hanahan, 28-24 to pick up their first win. Edisto over Branchville, 36-32. Patrick Henry Academy over Greenwood, 33-20. Calhoun County over Wilson Elko, 62-0. We have Bluffton defeating Battery Creek, 56-21. TL Hanna over Greenwood, 38-7. Andrew Jackson defeats Lakewood, 21-0. Pendleton blanks Fountain Inn, 53-0. Ashley Ridge picks up a big win over St. James, 63-34. Camden gets back in the win column. They knock off AC Flora, 52-27. The next one we have is James Island over Cane Bay, 28-7. Big win for James Island there. We've got Richland Northeast knocking off Spring Valley, 49-27 in a rivalry game there. It's the first time R&E's won that game in 12 years. Cardinal Newman over Heathwood Hall, 53-14. Fort Mill winning their first game in a year and a half over Lugolf Elgin, 25-15. We got Chapin defeating Brooklyn Casey, 38-31. Goose Creek over Blythewood, 31-28. Goose Creek picking up their first win on the season. Waccamaw over Andrews, 23-18. Hilton Head Christian over Northwood. We already went over that one. C.A. Johnson wins big over Swansea, 48-27. Ridgeview over Dreer, 40-14. First start for Trey Howard, Coach Howard's son there. He has a big-time performance. We'll talk about that later in the show. River Bluff over Lower Richland, 44-6. Kingstree defeats Hemingway, 54-0. Got Airport over Fox Creek, 35-18. Chester knocks off Catawba Ridge, 30-17. Big win for Chester. The Copperheads, though, going in the wrong direction. Got Loris knocking off Conway, 33-14. Fairfield Central over Keenan, 27-8. Louisville, they win big, 71-0 over Ridge Spring Minetta. I think that's consecutive weeks. They've gone 50 points, 60 points, and now 70 points. Carolina Academy knocks off Thomas Sumter, 31-10. Got Crestwood, just continuing to stack up wins. They beat North Central, 37-13. Lake City knocks off Georgetown, 33-3. We've got Dillon over Socastee, 48-25. Big bounce back for the Nasty Cats there. Spartanburg big over Riverside, 49-6. Finally finding some offense. Christchurch defeats Calhoun Falls, 51-0. Carolina Forest over Stratford, 38-21. HKT keeps going with their winning ways. They beat Wagner Sally, 56-22. BHP big over Emerald. They continue to roll, 52-14 behind that Russian attack there. Philip Simmons over Ainer, 55-30. Thomas Hayward defeats Dorchester Academy, 34-8. Lamar over Macby, 29-10. We've got Buford Academy over Orangeburg Prep, 28-21. Burns defeats Wren, 28-7. Interesting video there with a slide tackle by the kicker from Burns. Got Westside over Malden, 56-10. Bethesda Academy defeats Cross Episcopal, 53-0. Dutch Fork getting the offense going late. They knock off North Augusta, 41-12. Lakeview defeats Central, 22-6. Got Daniel big over Pickens, 54-7. Colleton Prep defeats Memorial Day, 3-0. That was a weird game. I think Memorial Day's out of Savannah. They ended up walking off the field in the second quarter. Hillcrest big over Powdersville, 52-14. We went over that one already, so I don't know why I'm repeating that one. Barnwell over Aiken, 26-12. Hampton County pulling a stunner, man. They knock off Hilton Head, who'd been, very hot to start the season. But Hampton County continues their winning ways. They win that game 26-3. Faith Christian over Newberry Academy 52-6. Mid Carolina defeats Columbia 29-6. Bowling Springs beats Greer 31-14. Green Sea Floyds over Carvers Bay 25-12. White Knoll rolls South Aiken 67-6. Midland Valley picks up another win. They go over Westwood 37-14. We've got Cape Fear over Lumberton in North Carolina 42-0. Gilbert, probably the upset of the week. They knock off, county rival there, Lexington 14-3. Hammond over Wilson Hall 25-7. Broome defeats Berea 58-6. Wilson over Darlington 14-6. Got Marion knocking off Sherrall 40-3. Indian Land over Trinity Christian in North Carolina 13-12. Porter Gow defeats Ben Lippen 42-9. Lucy Beckham big over Stall 57-0. Pinewood Prep knocks off John Paul II 48-28. Kevin, that's all the scores. If I missed anything or some SCSA scores that I might have skipped over, you can go ahead and read those now.
And a couple more SCSA scores here. We've got First Baptist 42-31 over Hilton Head Prep. First win for Coach Birch there. We've got Hammond taking down Wilson Hall 25-7. Carolina over Thomas Sumter 30-10. Porter Goud all over Ben Lippen 42-9. Wardlaw 30, Lawrence Academy 6. Augusta Christian 34-14 over Trinity Collegiate. Lee Academy 20, St. John's 13. Clarendon Hall 46-14 over King Academy. And then Academic Magnet, I think you actually said that one, Drell, so 62-23 over PCA. But Drell, let's get a quick another shout out to our friends of the program. Then we'll kind of go into the next segment.
Take your financial game to the next level with Founders Federal Credit Union. Reach your full potential. Relax. Join Founders today. Visit an office near you or relaxjoinfounders.com to apply. Federally insured by NCUA, member qualification required.
Carolina Orthopedic and Neurosurgical Associates, KONA, offers the most advanced training and experience in orthopedic surgery, neurosurgery, sports medicine, and pain management in the upstate. 3 convenient locations in Spartanburg, Duncan, and Greenville. Go to kona.care to learn more.
Come for the deals and stay for the quality with Folly Row. From polos to Q-zips to hats and more, their moisture wicking, quick drying, and anti-wrinkle apparel is the perfect blend of comfort and fashion for game day. FollyRow.com and at Folly Row on social media. Folly Row. Very good polos.
A few notes I've got, Jerel, that we did not go through in the scores here. Avery McFadden becomes the all-time receiving touchdown leader at Hillcrest High School with 26 now, passing Brian Spurgeon. Congrats to Avery on doing that. We had Camden. The Bulldogs got the 700th win in program history on Friday night. That's really cool for them. I know they had a couple chances. They hadn't got it done yet, but they did this past Friday, which is great for them. And then Louisville. These guys have been killing it, man. Their last 4 ball games, they have outscored opponents 241-0. The lines are absolutely rolling, Drill. Any other notes that you've got from this week 4 slate?
No, I think you got it covered. I think the only other one was that big R&E win. That's first time over Spring Valley in 12 years. And then big win for Fort Mill. I think it was 18 straight they had lost. So, happy to see those streaks come to an end.
No doubt about it. Let's take a look now at our stock up, stock down. Drill, I'll go first. A couple stock up programs that looked great this week and have improved their view in my eyes, I feel like. And one's Northwestern. I mean, you can't say enough about what they did to Gaffney. That's a huge stock up there for the Trojans. Also, the team that we saw, Irmo, big win for them. They looked great, very physical up front, very tough squad. Defense looked good as well. I like what the Yellow Jackets are doing. And then a favorite of mine from last year, Jerel, I know you remember these guys, the Loris Lions, Coach Greg Mance. The boys are playing good ball, man. They beat Conway pretty handily. Jackson Huff getting done there for them. I like what Loris is cooking down there in the Horry County area.
I'll throw in a few, man. 4D in the low country, man. They're kind of flying under the radar with the success that Somerville's had so far this season. Had a lot of, coaching issues in the offseason, but they continue to play good football. So good to see 4D play well. The Latta Vikings, man. We're really good friends with the Latta alum, Hunter Allen. He's big on his Vikings, and they really proved it this week, defeating Johnsonville. That's a huge win for them. Going to make that region a lot of fun. Lamar. That's a team that probably schedules as difficult as anybody, regardless of classification. Good to see them get a big win over McBee. And probably the upset of the week, I would say, Gilbert knocking off Lexington. man, Coach Lee Part and those guys are really playing good football this year. Really cool to see them win that rivalry game. Country Roads.
A few more. Greenville, big bounce back win over Jerel. Man, we got James Island. This team continues to roll, man. We don't talk enough about those guys, but they, defeat a team in Cane Bay pretty handily there. Big win for Coach McCoy and the boys. We've got Woodmont, a team that has continued to roll here in the Piedmont area. Big win over Easley. They've got that offense rolling. They're playing good football under Coach Sutherland there. And then Hampton County. Last week we had Hilton Head Island on stock up. They'd blown out Wilson. This week Hampton County turned around and beats those guys. A bigger school there. They're looking really good under Rob Hanna.
Yeah, another one, R&E. It's a personal connection here. My dad's an R&E grad. They beat Spring Valley, so that's cool to see the Cavaliers pick up the dub there. Got Clover, man. They've been really, getting it together. I think their first game was against that Northwestern team who was pissed off from losing to Providence Day. They've really kind of put it together since then. Big win this weekend for them. And then South Florence, man, that's a huge win over South Point. Game was tighter than it was last year. They get the bye week. Then they get to go play, their first region game against Hartsville. Region 6 4A, one of my favorite in the state.
I got a couple 1A squads here. Green Sea Floyd's first win for Coach Martin. Hats off to him. Big win over Carver's Bay. And then HKT, undefeated on the year. They were playing previously unbeaten Wagner Sally. They were up 50-0 on those guys, Jerel. They are playing great football down there. They are stock up. And then a few SCISA schools. Cardinal Newman. Coach Corey Helms is building something special there. This is a team that has gotten really good the last couple of years, really competitive in 4A. They're going to be a lot of fun to follow down the stretch. Thomas Hayward, a big bounce-back win over Dorchester, which is a rivalry matchup there for them. Big win for Thomas Hayward. And Holly Hill, a huge 8-man win over Richard Wynn. Two teams that we very, very well could see playing for state here in a few months. And the Skis are 8-man ranks. But that's all of our stock up drill. Flipping over to the stock down side, some teams that maybe did not look so good this week. Who are a couple you got on that list there?
I got to start off with the Hanahan Hawks, man. They've had a rough go of it. No, they've had some injury issues there, but losing to Timberland, I think Timberland was 0-4 going to that game. I expected them, to kind of get right and, win that football game. They weren't able to get it done. Gaffney, not because they lost to Northwestern, the way they lost to Northwestern at home, they really got their doors blown off. It looks better because they scored late, but they were outclassed in every way in that football game. And Jerel, man, that's a team, it's kind of a personal thing here. It's a team that I really put my name behind. I was really pushing this program. I thought they were ready to take that next step. This is kind of the point in the season where they did the same thing last year. While the game was closer against Greenville, they still weren't able to get that win. So I got to put the Patriots on stock down this week.
We got a couple more 1A schools here. Denmark Olar, a team that was in everybody's darling, everybody's top 5 a few weeks ago, has now lost back-to-back ball games, getting blown out by Blackfield Hilda. Kind of surprising there for the Vikings. Also, Hannah Pamplico, a team I mentioned earlier, lost 2 in a row now and really caught me off guard. I thought they were a really good offense, and they haven't gotten it going lately. And then Wagner Sally, the flip side of that HKT game, down 50-0 in a big region contest there. That was surprising to me, and they just get the doors blown off on Friday night.
Yeah, same thing. Hilton Head Island, this is a team that we were high on. They lose to Hampton County. Not to say Hampton County is not a very good football team, but we thought that they were going to be considered 4A. It appears that they are not. Andrews, that's a difficult loss, 5-pointer, but a tough loss nonetheless. And Lexington, that's probably, I would say, the upset of the week. Everybody had them top 3, top 5 in 5A. They lose to Gilbert 3A squad there. Not a good look, for Lexington and the Wildcats there.
And the final one for me, Dorchester Academy, the flip side of that Thomas Hayward game there. Lost to your rival again. I thought they were going to win. Tough loss there for Dorchester. Drew, let's look now at our Players of the Week, brought to you by the George Agency. Another great list of candidates. I mean, every week we say it, man, but we're leaving out guys. I feel like every week we just can't pick them all. But do definitely want to give hats off and a shout out to all of them here in a minute. But our 3 Players of the Week for Week 4. We've got Turbo Richard at Northwestern, 9 carries for 114 and 2 touchdowns, a catch for 8 yards, a 94-yard kickoff return touchdown, and a 53-yard punt return touchdown. Welcome back, Turbo. Huge ball game from him at the reservation, and he is one of our Players of the Week, no doubt about it. Our second one, Caleb Pearson at C.A. Johnson, 22 carries, 390 yards, 5 touchdowns, also chipped in with 2 catches and 38 yards. A huge game for Caleb Pearson, almost 4 bills on the ground, Jerel, there for him. Then our third Player of the Week, a guy that we saw in person, That is Jaden Allen Hendricks out of Irmo. Goes for 201 and 4 touchdowns in that win over Hartsville. Huge game for him. The theme for this week, Jerel, obviously was the running backs, guys who got it done on the ground with Turbo Richard, Caleb Pearson, and Jaden Allen Hendricks. But lots of great nominees. We'll roll through those here in a second. But once again, shout out to Turbo Richard from Northwestern, Caleb Pearson from C.A. Johnson, and then Jaden Allen Hendricks over at Irmo. Jerel, who are some of the other folks that we need to give a shine to on the program?
We will start off with Coleman Gray from Chapman. He goes 8 for 17 for 150 yards, a touchdown. Also had 17 carries for 177 yards and 2 touchdowns in a big win over Clinton. Surprise, surprise, Ian Grissom. He goes 16 for 23, 326, 5 touchdowns, also carried the ball 4 times for 52 yards and 2 touchdowns in their 71-0 win on Friday night. Camonte Rose at South Florence had 2 interceptions, the pick 6 to seal it in their huge win over South Point. Jordan Gidron, this is a player that we saw. I think he's only a sophomore, man. Good-looking player there from Ridgeview, had 5 catches for 118 yards and 3 touchdowns. Debo Hall at York, man, this kid just made the Shrine Bowl. Fantastic football player, had 8 tackles, 1 TFL, 1 pick, and a forced fumble. He is a great football player on that back end there. Trey Howard getting his first start for Ridgeview, goes for 332 passing yards, 4 touchdowns. The freshman can sling it there. Will Bostic from May River had 5 tackles, 1 assisted tackle, a pass breakup, and a forced fumble. Another, weekly, candidate on our list, Marquise Henderson from BHP. This time only had 7 carries, only 201 yards and 2 touchdowns this week. Ja Mayrant from Camden had 7 catches for 205 and 2 touchdowns, Tykees Davenport from Calhoun County goes 5 of 7 for 163, 2 touchdowns, also had 122 on the ground and 2 more touchdowns. Kamaje Brackett Brandon from Broome goes 11 for 13 for 215 and 3 touchdowns. Also had 9 carries for 110 yards and a touchdown. Yannick Smith out of Somerville had 160 receiving yards, 2 touchdowns, and also threw for a score in their blowout win over Sumter. Sharody Richardson from Westside, 9 carries for 186 yards and 3 touchdowns. Booby Miles Trussett. Kevin, listen to this scoreline. The PD Academy player goes 2 passing touchdowns, a rushing touchdown, 6 catches, 152 yards, a touchdown, and also kicked 4 extra points on 4 attempts. He can also paint the back porch. We had Colby Richardson for PD Academy go 16 to 29, 179, a touchdown, 4 rushes for 41 yards, a catch for 22 yards, and a touchdown. Also had a Hughes Elvington from PD Academy, 4 catches for 103 yards and a touchdown. Jordan Sink from Woodmont goes over 250 in the air with 3 touchdowns. Drake Stewart, also from Woodmont, goes for over 100 receiving yards and 2 touchdowns. And Kevin, I'm going to slow it down here. We had Chandler Lee from Broome. Didn't see this story. You need to go check it out. It's going on social media there. Coach Jason Farmer, those guys. Broome played Berea. They allowed this young man, had 1 carry for 40 yards and a touchdown to end that football game. Hats off to Coach Farmer. Also, big hats off to Coach Drew Chisholm and that Berea football program for allowing this kid, to make his season, make his career. What a memory. So cool to see Chandler get in the end zone there.
I think it may have actually been 60-yarder too, Jerel.
It's a 60-yard.
You might be cheating. You might be cheating 20 yards there.
Okay.
Yeah, awesome story, man. Awesome video, to get both sides to get along, be able to do that. For Chandler is super cool, man. I saw a post-game interview with him as well. He was so excited about it, and said he's like I'm happy to play with them more if they need me to as well. So that was cool to hear. To hear how excited he was about it, man. But hats off to Chandler and that Broome program and Berea as well for helping out with that. But once again, our 3 players of the week presented by the Georgia ADC. We got Turbo Richard over at Northwestern, Caleb Pearson at C.A. Johnson, and Jaden Allen Hendricks out of Irmo winning this week's honor. Jerel, let's give one more shout out to our friends of the program before we get into our Folly Row questions.
Take your financial game to the next level with Founders Federal Credit Union. Reach your full potential. Relax. Join Founders today. Visit an office near you or relaxjoinfounders.com to apply. Federally insured by NCUA, member qualification required.
The Georgia Agency has been serving the insurance needs of South Carolina for over 40 years. They're a full-line insurance agency concentrated in employee benefits and health insurance with an office in Mullins and Murrells Inlet, but they can help you all across the state. They have clients in Greer, Rock Hill, Columbia, and more. So wherever you are, they can help. Give Bradley, Wayne, Richard, and the crew a call or check them out online at thegeorgeagency.net. That's thegeorgeagency.net.
Come for the deals and stay for the quality with Folly Row. From polos to Q-zips to hats and more, their moisture wicking, quick drying, and anti-wrinkle apparel is the perfect blend of comfort and fashion for game day. FollyRow.com and at Folly Row on social media. Folly Row, very good polos.
Jerel, we've got 2 Folly Row questions this week on our Week 4 Folly Row recap show. The first one here, region play is about to get underway. Non-region play winding down this week and next week. In South Carolina, if you guys aren't familiar, non-region games, they don't really matter for anything. They don't count for playoff seeding. They don't count for anything necessarily. Back in the day they did, but now they don't. How do you feel about that system, Jerel? What do you think we could do to kind of incentivize, maybe some better non-region matchups? Some teams, hats off, a South Point, a Gaffney, a Lamar, whoever, they will play the best of the best non-region. They don't care. But then other teams maybe don't do that. How do you like the system that we have now? What would you maybe tweak about it a little bit?
Yeah, I don't know how you could do it, but I mean, maybe something like with your seating, like maybe like a point system. I'm just kind of spitballing here, but depending on, classification, if you schedule up and you win a game, or you schedule up and you play something competitive, you get some sort of credit for that, as far as the seedings go. When it comes to playoffs, maybe something like that. Not really sure, because also some of these teams have to go out of state to play, so maybe get some credit for that. I'm not really sure how you do that, but that's a very good question, because some of these games are awesome. Like we see the slate this week, like these non-region, matchups that we had were fantastic, especially on paper. And I know it takes, they got to schedule them 2 years out. You don't know who's good and who's not going to be good, but I love to see those. And then some of them you see, like maybe a mid-tier, lower-tier program, and I hate ranking our schools here in South Carolina. They're going to play a few classifications down, just to pick up a win, throw wins in the column. And, I would rather, be more competitive, and instead of just beating up on a lower-class team that probably has half the kids that you have on the field. But what do you think about that, Kevin, as far as incentivizing those?
It's tough, 'cause we used to have a point system here in the state, and it got tough at the higher levels because, they couldn't play anybody lower than them, or they wouldn't get any. Even though some natural rivalries, you couldn't play them because you weren't getting the points you needed for them. And then obviously, some lower level schools and even bigger schools wanted to play a certain group of 4A or Big 16 schools, whatever you want to call it, who maybe weren't as good as other schools because they knew they'd get the points for it, but it wouldn't be necessarily a tough ball game. So it's a really fine line, and I don't know the best way to work it. Like you said, I'd love to see a team that gets a big, an Irmo who gets a big win over Hartsville, or Northwestern over Gaffney this week. See them be rewarded for that somehow when the seeding comes out for the playoff brackets. But I don't know what the best way to do that is. And I think if that was the case, we would see probably some even more competitive games. As far as I'm sure these guys are holding a lot of things playbook wise in these games because they just don't want to put too much on film. If a guy's a little bit dinged up, you're probably not going to play him because you don't want to risk a further injury. So you might get some more excitement early in the year with that too. But it's a tough thing to figure out because now basically the playoff brackets are set so far in advance. Where hey, if you're a 1 seed in this region, you're getting home field throughout. Even if the other 1 seed may have played all top flight competition and in one of those games, that doesn't really matter once the playoffs come around. So it's a fine line for sure. I don't know what you do, but I would like to see it tweaked a little bit to get some credit for winning a big non-region game for sure.
Most definitely. And the second question we had, man, Shrine Bowl, we had those rosters released earlier today. You can beat yourselves up on the message board that we have on our website, movingthechains.com. If you want to talk about that, discuss it there. We have nothing to do with that selection. But anyways, do have something to do with it being selected so early. Here we are just wrapping up week 4. You have some teams that maybe have canceled games, so at, the maximum teams have played 5 games this season, and we've already selected those players for those rosters. What do you think about them making the selections this early for such an important showcase game? Not just, between the states there, that border battle, but also this is a big opportunity for these guys to get college looks. What do you think about them scheduling, or releasing those rosters this early in the year?
And that full roster is available on our social media and our website. I put a blog out with all the kids from South Carolina on there, so go check that out and see position by position and school by school who made what. But I'll tell you, Jerel, I hate it. I mean, I really do hate it, man. I understand it because I know they used to pick them. I think maybe it was like in the lower state, upper state round, something like that, late in the season. And the coaches said, didn't give them enough time to prepare their team and that kind of stuff. But when you do it so early like this, I mean, you're really just basing it off of, junior year, sophomore year, and then some of these combines and camps they saw the kids at this summer, which I just don't like. I mean, you look at it the past couple of years, you've seen guys like, just one example from last year, Bryson James. The guy is a Mr. Football finalist, doesn't make the Shrine Bowl. So you're telling me he's one of the best players in the state, but he's not. He can't find a spot on the roster somewhere. Same thing with Noah Bell a couple years ago at Saluda. That guy's a Mr. Football finalist, doesn't make the Shrine Bowl roster. And it just doesn't. And same thing with Bryson James last year. He wasn't even on North South, I think, at first either. I think he may have been affiliated with that. So. Yeah, these rosters. I mean, I don't envy the coaches because I know it's a tough job to pick. We got so many talented players, and I'm sure there's tons of snubs out there. And you guys, I'm sure, are going on crazy about it on Facebook and message boards or whatever. And I get that, but I don't like it being done so early. What if I don't know? I mean, what if some kid is going to break out in region play, has a huge year? I don't know. It's just. Obviously, you feel like you got a good idea for who a kid is by this point in his career, but maybe you don't. Maybe there's some super late bloomer, or just who knows what it is. Maybe it's he's been playing under one coach and that coach got fired. They got a new coach now, and it's a different system, and it just fits his talents better. I don't know what it is, but I quite frankly, Jerel, I don't like it. How about you?
Yeah, I gotta agree with you, man. And I didn't expect you to come out and say it that forcefully, but I agree with you, man. I don't like it. I don't like it this early, just because, like you said. That really, you just kind of gave me PTSD thinking about Bryson James as an alternate, not just missing Shrine Bowl, but an alternate north-south. I mean, you go back and you read that kid's stats from last year, we're talking about all phases of the football game. I mean, offense, defense, special teams, he was a difference maker. And that's just because maybe people hadn't seen him, or maybe he wasn't able to go to the combine, or, maybe people just, valued other people more, other players more than him. But I totally agree with you, man. It being this early kind of stinks. You might have some guys that have some injuries. You never know what the factors may be, but they should definitely be making that selection lower. And it's a situation. It's kind of like I liken it's like the way the Heisman used to be. It was more of a career award, and then some guy might have a fantastic season and then a fantastic postseason as well, and then awards getting picked in December. I'm a Clemson guy. I'll go ahead and say it, like Deshaun Watson never winning a Heisman when he was clearly the best player in college football his junior year. So something similar to that. But yeah, I also agree. Kind of sucks. But Kev, we'll wrap that up. Folly Row. It's that time too, man. Weather's getting chilly. I just walked outside a little bit ago. It's like the 60s. Q-Zip season, man. They have awesome Q-Zips as well. Go check them out. Go get some polos. Go get some gear, some shirts, some hats, koozies. Our friends at Folly Row are fantastic. Really appreciate them sponsoring this recap show for us.
I actually wore their polo to the game on Friday down at Irmo at Hartsville. You'll see it in the interview. It's a great look, if I may say so myself, Jerel.
You looked fantastic.
I appreciate that, man. And I mentioned every week they've got college stuff too. They got a South Carolina and a Clemson themed polo. Go get that. It's great material, moisture wicking. Feels great out in the hot sun. Great for golf as well. And the Q-Zips, man, they look great as well. The logo is solid. The pineapple logo is really neat. So they do a great job there. Folly Row does for sure. But Jerel, appreciate everybody tuning in as always. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, etc. at Movin Chains. Website movinchains.com. Podcast on Apple, Spotify, Google, and more as well. Jerel and I do a weekly recap show. Comes out on Sundays on the podcast platforms. We do a live preview show on Tuesday nights about 7 o'clock on Facebook and YouTube. Love to have you guys hop into that and ask about your favorite team, talk about your favorite game, whatever it is. Love to have you join us on that platform. It's a lot of fun to do that. Our Players of the Week, Teams of the Week, Games of the Week, all that stuff's coming out. Our Pick 'em with Hand Engineering is a lot of fun. Definitely get into that. And I got to shout out our Twitter or X, or whatever you call it, Spaces on Friday nights, man.
Twitter.
That's been super fun to grow. It's literally like an old school scoreboard show. But you don't have to go find the radio signal. You don't have to, wait for commercials, all that. It's just me and Jerel and John giving scores, giving updates. We have some fans and some play-by-play guys, some coaches hop in from all across the state, talk about the game that they were at. It's really neat. We actually had some people from, nationwide. We had a guy from Clover, who lives in Arizona now, hopping in last
Crazy.
week, dropping stats from the Blue Eagles on us, man. It was super cool to have that happen. And it's really cool. We had a guy from the, maybe the best game last week, Chapman Clinton. Zach was able to hop in and give us a recap of that ball game, man. We've got great folks all across the state who can hop in and give us some recaps. So it's a lot of fun. Hopefully you guys check us out about 10:30 or 11 on Friday nights on Twitter. It's a lot of fun to be a part of for sure. Drew, anything else I missed here on our Week 4 recap show?
No, man, you got everything. As always, we appreciate you guys listening to us. Next week's show is probably, it's going to be quality over quantity, I'll say. A lot of teams running into their bye weeks, but there's some really good matchups that I'm excited to talk about, next week. Again, like you said, we'll preview it on Tuesday. So be sure to tune in live on YouTube and Facebook for that. It's always a lot of fun, always a lot of comments. And I need to see some Gaffney fans for sure on Tuesday because they were very vocal. I'm trying to get the comments up, running that. They were very vocal, very upset with you and John for making that prediction of Northwestern. And I'm going to make sure that they re-emerge and reappear when we redo it on Tuesday.
We're not always right, Jerel. Sometimes we are. So I gotta bask in this one a little bit here, man. That was great to get that one right there, especially after the flack we caught for going that direction. So that was cool. Definitely want to remind them of that on Tuesday when the show gets rolling. But do want to give one more shout out to Coach Aaron Brand over at Irmo, Jay and Alan Hendricks for giving us time after the ball game, both those guys, and obviously Coach Jeff Calabrese, AD Brad Boo over there at Hartsville for letting us come down, talking to us after the game, before the game. Great to meet up with those guys as always. Shout out Westwood Barbecue. Great buffet there on Friday, man. That was awesome. Like I said, check out our Instagram and our TikTok for our food review from Westwood and from Kellytown. Really good hot dog on Friday night. Definitely want to tune in for that. Also, keep an eye on our social media pages. We may have a little bit of a merch drop this week, Drew. So I'm just hearing word from the birdies. We have maybe a little merch drop this week for Moving the Chains. So if you want to support the boys, keep an eye on the social media pages this week.
Please do. Always support the boys. A lot of fun. And, I'm afraid about my pick'em score this week. I'm glad we recapped this. We didn't talk about it earlier in the show, but apparently I don't know as much about South Carolina high school football as I thought I did based on my pick'em this week, but we'll get them next week, right?
No doubt about it. Well, Moving the Chains, as always, brought to you by Founders Federal Credit Union. For Jerel Hendricks, I'm Kevin Thomas. This has been our Week 4 recap show from Folly Row, and we will catch you guys shortly.